Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. Goalies, welcome back to another episode of the DIY Goalie Podcast presented by True North Goaltending. I am your host, Nathan Park, and today it's just me. Connor isn't feeling the greatest, and between the two of us, we've been extremely busy this season, actually. So, as you guys could tell, it's been hard for us to get on the pod together. So it's just me flying solo today. I figured, I know you guys really like the technical sort of podcast episodes when we kind of dive into some of the on ice stuff and how we can improve on what we do on the ice and in our game. So I figured we would dive into another one of those today. We'll kind of go through rushes as our topic today. So that kind of includes odd man rushes like 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, even stuff like 1-on-1s, breakaways. So we'll kind of go through some situations with that and kind of some tips and tricks to help out with that stuff. We actually had last month our email subscriber newsletter. We touched on breakaways in that email that we sent out. So if you guys want to be a part of those emails that we send out at the end of every month, you can head to truenorthgoaltending.com, and at the bottom of our website in the footer, there's a little area to sign up with your email. And every month we send out a exclusive article for all our subscribers, as well as a practice plan that we put together with some drills and stuff like that to kind of help, both coaches, goalie parents, and goalies out there to kind of get some drill ideas as to what they can work on throughout the rest of the month. So yeah, at the bottom of our website at truenorthgoaltending.com, you can check that out. You can get yourself signed up there and get those emails every month. So we may as well dive right into it. This will probably end up being another one of the kind of shorter episodes. Our solo episodes usually tend to be a little shorter, but we'll get right into the nitty gritty of it. As with everything goaltending, when it comes to any sort of rush on us, it's all situational. But there's a couple things that at least can help you, get into the right position, give yourself the best chance to be successful in a rush situation. So the biggest thing, and speaking from experience, looking at some videos when we do video breakdowns for our goalies, I notice a lot of goalies kind of struggle with being set early. That's, I think, more often than not, I find myself in multiple clips when I do video breakdowns of goalies saying, probably could have been set earlier there. Hey, we weren't set there. Hey, whatever the case is. And I find, especially on rush chances, this is pretty common too. So my biggest thing that I would tell you guys is make sure you guys are set early. That sets you up for success. A lot of times when we have a goal against, especially on a rush, a lot of times it's a breakdown that happens 5 or 10 seconds before the goal actually happens. And a lot of times that comes from just not the right setup. And then we end up being a little bit late, a little bit behind the play. And then it's kind of a struggle from there. So my general rule of thumb on that is we want to, at the very least, start getting into our setup when that puck crosses the red line on a rush back into our zone. And 100% we want to be fully set up by the time that puck crosses the blue line into our zone. So we should, by the time the puck hits the blue line, we should have already gathered our depth for whatever the situation is. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we want to make sure that by the time the puck's at the blue line, we have established our depth. We are starting to gain some momentum back with the rush. But not only is the depth important, we need to make sure that we're in a proper setup. So the raised stance has become a very popular thing in the goalie community, and I'm all for the raised stance when the situation calls for it. And you have to make sure that you do the raised stance properly. So when the puck, say you're on a power play, when the puck's working around the perimeter, that's a great time to be in the raised stance. When there's no immediate threat to the net, great time to be in the raised stance. When there's the threat of a puck coming on net, or a situation like a rush or something like that, those are not the times that we want to be in the raised stance. We want to be a little bit more engaged and ready to go because things happen quick in these situations. So we want to make sure we have a good knee bend. Our feet are at the proper width. So we're not too wide in our stance. We're not too narrow in our stance. We want that knee bend so we don't have straight legs where we don't have any power, and that puts our weight back on our heels, which affects our balance. So we want to be ready to go with those hands forward, those shoulders slightly in front of our knees, good knee bend, feet are proper width apart, and we're just ready to go. Because on the rushes, passes happen quick, and then it's usually a quick shot right after that or another quick pass. Things happen quick. We got to be ready to go. So setup is very important. We are not waiting until the puck hits our blue line to start setting up. You should already be set up. Now, I understand sometimes turnovers happen and maybe there's a breakaway from like just inside our blue line where it starts or whatever the case is. But my argument to that is you should probably already be partially set at the very least, anyways, if the puck was already in your zone. So it shouldn't take you long to get fully set for that situation either. So that's a common one I see lots, is goalies just not being set in time, and not being set early enough. So make sure you guys are doing that. Make sure you guys are where you need to be as early as possible, and that'll set you up for success. The other thing too, so talking about depth, as the rush is coming down on you, you need to scan the ice and start to identify what is transpiring in front of you. Is it a 2-on-1? Is it a 3-on-2? Is it a breakaway? Is it a 1-on-1, a 2-on-2? Whatever the case is, you should have an idea of it because you're able to see that whole ice. You should take a quick scan, identify who's attacking from the other team, who you have back defending. Is there a back checker? Is there a trailer from the other team? Is it a 3-on-2 with potentially 4-on-2 potential because one of the D-men's jumped up? Okay. Are teams changing? Is part of your forward group making a bad change, or is the other team tired and making a change? So instead of a 3-on-2, maybe it's a 2-on-2 because of that change, right? You guys need to scan, you need to identify the threats and your support, and you need to start to kind of anticipate how that play is going to go. And as best we can, as that play develops, we are still keeping our pulse as to where all the players are, where the puck is, and trying to anticipate how things are going to go. So if it is a 3-on-2, for example, and you got two guys driving wide and the middle guy maybe floats up for a trailer spot, then we need to recognize, okay, my defensemen are wide. One's got the guy with the puck, one's got the guy driving to the back door, but that trailer kind of hitting the soft spot in the slot isn't covered. Most likely that's where that puck's going to go, so I need to be ready for that. That's kind of the things we need to be thinking about, the things we need to be processing as this play is developing. We need to understand what's open. We need to understand how our defensemen are playing it or how our back checkers playing it. We need to understand kind of the setup that the other team is going for, right? So on a 2-on-1, a lot of times that backside guy just drives to the far post in that backdoor area. But there are some times on a 2-on-1, maybe the two guys cross with a drop pass or something like that. Or maybe the guy with the puck kind of takes a little bit of ice and tries to get himself in a better shooting position. Sometimes your defenseman makes a big difference too. Are they going towards the guy with the puck, trying to pressure, make him make a mistake? Are they just holding back strictly for the back door, giving you a wide open lane for that guy with the puck to come attack and take a shot? These are the things that we need to start processing, right? So another big one is understanding the situation, processing the situation, and trying to make the right decision. So when it comes to depth, if we've got a 2-on-1, for example, we probably don't want to gain as much depth as we would if it's a breakaway or a 1-on-1, right? Because there is that potential for the backdoor threat. So if it's an odd man rush, if the other team has more players coming down than you have defenders, usually we don't want to come out as far in our depth, so we have the ability to get across the net a little bit easier on a lateral play, on a pass across. So for example, and this is just me throwing things out there, this doesn't have to be how you play, but as an example, if on a breakaway you come out almost to the hash mark to match speed and get a lot of speed back, if you're one of those goalies that likes to play like that, on a 2-on-1, don't be getting out to the hash marks to gain your speed back to match the rush, right? There's that backdoor threat. You are going to get burned. It's going to be hard to play. Maybe only come, to the bottom of the circle and start gaining your momentum back, right? Again, that's just an example, a bit of an extreme example, but just wanted to kind of use that to be able to get the visual in your guys' head. But if there is an odd man rush potential for that backside pass or a drop to the slot or whatever the case is, we want to have a little bit less depth than if it's, a 1-on-1, 2-on-2, or a breakaway or anything like that. The reason for that is obviously it helps us get across the net quicker. It also helps us recover to rebounds quicker. On a 2-on-1, guys really like to shoot for the rebounds. If they don't have a pass, they shoot for that far pad. So be aware of that too. But when we, like, the reason that we want to get out and gain some depth to get some momentum back is so we don't get caught flat-footed. So that's why you see goalies, especially in shootouts or breakaways or whatever, charge way out and then match speed back a little bit, get some momentum backwards. That's just because we don't want to get caught flat-footed, especially in a breakaway situation where there's the potential for a deke. If we don't get a little bit of that backward momentum, it's really hard for us to make that lateral movement when somebody's coming down on us with speed. If we don't have that speed, it's really hard. It's like when a defenseman steps up for a forward. If they step up and they have no speed whatsoever, the forward's just going to blow by them. That's why defensemen kind of curl up, gain some backward momentum, and then start to close the gap, but they're still moving backwards so that they aren't flat-footed and don't just get blown by. It's the same thought process for us as goalies. Gain that momentum backward to match their speed a little bit. And then it's easier for us to make that lateral movement if there's a deke or even a pass too. The thing with that, though, that we have to be careful of, and this is more for the beginner, especially the younger goalies, there does come a point that we have to start to hold our ice a little bit more, though. We can't just go guns a-blazing as fast as we can backwards right into, the back of the net. That's obviously not going to help us too much. So even though we do want some momentum back, we need to be probably slightly slower than the player so that that gap kind of gets closed if they try and do something in tight. We want to be able to hold our ice, maybe poke with our stick a little bit or whatever the case is, because again, we don't want to fly back into the back of our net. So the other thing though too, we don't want to hold our ice on the goal line. We want to be slightly above. So the best way I can explain it is as we're coming back, our first couple backward C cuts are pretty powerful, gain a lot of speed for us, and then we kind of almost drift a little bit backwards with the player, so that they kind of close that gap with their speed a little bit, but we still have some backward momentum. And then there comes a point too where if we are getting too far back, we might have to just stop and eliminate that backward momentum. Maybe we misread it. Maybe we got too much speed to start. At that point, it is what it is. Having a little bit of that depth will be more beneficial than getting that backward momentum. Because again, if we keep going, we end up in our net. That's not going to really help us much at all. So just be aware of that. Again, couple good hard C cuts to start to get some movement going, and then just let a little bit of that drift happen. They're going to close the gap with their speed, and then we can kind of go from there. So it takes some experience, it takes some getting used to, and a little bit of balancing on our end to figure out what's too much, what's enough, right? And that comes a bit with experience, but play around with it. Most of this applies to breakaways, but there is a little bit of backward momentum too to other rushes as well. But the breakaways for sure is where we really need that backward momentum in case there is a deke. And also gaining that depth kind of helps too if there's just a straight shot. The third thing that I'll say about that too is as we're getting um, that backwards momentum, we have to make sure we're set that whole time too, though, right? Because regardless of the situation, if it is a breakaway, a 2-on-1, 3-on-2, even if it's a 1-on-2 or a 1-on-3 or 2-on-3, we need to make sure that as we're coming back, we also are set. So we kind of talked about that in the first point, but a lot of goalies will kind of, as they're easing up a little bit on their backwards momentum, they have a tendency to maybe stand up a little taller, get a little more, or a little less knee bend, a little bit more straight legged. So careful of that trap. We don't want to make or don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we're kind of standing upright and then it's hard for us to execute a save or a movement on a pass or a deke. We need to make sure that those knees stay bent, those hands stay in front. That whole time that we're moving back, we're still in a good stance. And we want to make sure that we don't have happy feet. We want to eliminate as much movement as we can from our feet so that we don't have a bunch going on, right? Like we've talked about it before on the podcast, but the more movement that we do as a goalie, the more trouble we can potentially get ourselves in, right? So we don't want the happy feet that are stomping and doing little C cuts and all this stuff. Okay, yes, we want to move. Yes, we want to get backwards momentum. We want to get lateral adjustments if the puck is getting carried across the ice, all of that stuff. But we need to make sure we do it by staying low and forward in our stance with those small little shuffles or those small little C cuts we're doing. And we're only doing enough to get the movement we need to do, right? So only enough to gain some momentum back or only enough to adjust laterally to maintain our angle, and that's it. The more that we do, the more likely it's going to be that we aren't able to make a save or a movement. So pretty critical that that we're doing all that in a good set position. When it comes to when there's more players. So if we're talking less about the breakaways now, more about kind of, your 2-on-1 rushes, your 3-on-2 rushes, all of that stuff. On those lateral movements, you guys need to make sure we get a good rotation, get a good angle on that push across if there is a pass, right? So we talked about depth on these situations. If we played it right, we shouldn't be too far out of our net. We should have enough depth that we're covering our net, but we're back enough that it's easy for us to get across on a pass. Make sure you take that split second to rotate so that we get a good angle back more towards the post, not always to the post, depending on how deep the puck is on that pass across. We should only really be getting back to our post if the guy is like right on top of us at the top of the crease almost for that backdoor tap in type play, or if the pass goes almost to like the goal line, like where Leon Draisaitl likes to score his goals, where he's like, half a foot off the goal line. in that situation, yes, we push back to the post, but other than that, we should get a little bit in front of the post. And the reason for that is if we get our foot against that post, it basically stops our body. And a lot of times our body doesn't go fully over and get set and on angle to where that final push position is. So we want to make sure that we get a little bit in front of that post so that our body can actually get into the lane, get on proper angle, right? We want that belly button in between that puck in the middle of the net. And a lot of times the post doesn't allow us to get fully over because we get stuck on it, right? So if you need to, if you're pushing past where you need to go, take that lead leg and just grab a quick break, lift it up, grab that edge, grab a quick break, get it back down, and then we're set. We're ready to go. That being said, though, we don't want to be pushing flat where we don't rotate at all because it's going to take a long, long time for us to get into the lane properly. So that rotation is really important. Getting a good angle on that push across, then we're set. We're ready to go, and makes our life a lot easier. The other thing too on those lateral plays, if there is a pass, as best you can, try and get over on your feet. I know not every situation is going to allow for that, but on a 3-on-2 or a 3-on-1 or whatever the case is, even a 2-on-1, there's a lot of times where we kind of have a pass across and then they look for a pass back, right? Just make sure to, on those lateral plays, when you guys get that push across, we get a good solid stop and set so we don't have any kind of forward drift or lateral drift in the end of that push, because again, it's a lot easier for us to make saves when we're set, still ready to go. When we're moving, it makes it a lot harder, right? So pass comes across, get that rotation, get a good hard push, good hard stop, whether it is on our feet or on our knees. Ideally, if we can get on our feet, gives us more optionality. But either way, we want to get those feet set as quick as we can and be ready for a shot or another pass or whatever the case is. We also want to make sure too that we're not cheating that lateral play. The puck is still our priority, and we still need to trust our defensemen a little bit to do their job. I know on some teams that's really hard to do, but at the end of the day, as a goalie, it's more our job if that guy takes a shot, the guy with the puck. If he takes a shot, that's more our job to deal with. If he gets that pass across and it's a backdoor tap in, yes, we want to try and get across and make that save, but realistically, if that play happens and if they're successful at it and they end up with a backdoor tap in, it's not the end of the world on our part. Like, goals are going to go in. And if those are the kind of goals that are going in, I feel like we're mostly doing our job, right? So, again, obviously, setting ourselves up for success as best as we can is what we want to do. But we want to make sure that that priority is still our shot, that priority is still the puck, and we're not trying to cheat to that pass at all, because that can get us into trouble as well. One thing I want to talk about too, I guess this one would apply more so for breakaways, but it can happen too on 2-on-1s and stuff, is player deception. So when players are coming down on a breakaway, they're going to try and fake the goalie out. That's kind of the biggest thing that they're trying to do. But it does happen on 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, all that stuff as well. Like, players look to fake pass and shoot, or they fake shot and pass. They do stuff like that as well. So the one thing that I would suggest is making sure that we are watching the puck more so, right? The players are going to do all this stuff where their head is looking for a pass and then they take a shot, or maybe they open up their blade a certain way and then rip it on net. Maybe they do a leg kick when they're coming down on a breakaway to try and get you to bite and drop into the butterfly before they move to one side or the other. Biggest thing just keep your eyes on the puck. That's going to tell you what you need to know. Um, Anything that the player's body does, yes, there's a little bit of reading the release when it comes to, you know, their blade opening up, their hands doing all the work, in terms of a shot or a deke or a pass or anything like that. There is a little bit of that we can read off the player, but to be honest, a lot of that comes more subconsciously anyways as we get more experienced. And once we start noticing patterns, like our brain starts noticing patterns from releases, from passes, from dekes, whatever the case is, we kind of process that a little bit more subconsciously. That's why sometimes the flutter pucks throw us for a loop, because we're so used to a certain release translating to a certain shot. And if they fan on that shot, it really throws us for a loop. So you can kind of not put too much weight into that. Your experience is going to kind of pick up that release anyways. We can read it a little bit, but players today are taught to be deceitful. Players today are taught to fake stuff out and try and put whether it's a goalie or a defenseman at a disadvantage by faking them out. So as best we can, just keep the eyes on the puck, just watch and track the puck. And that's going to be what's going to really help in terms of whether it's a pass, whether it's a shot, whether it's a deke. Um, Watch for the release, keep the eyes on the puck, don't really care about anything else that the player is doing. Um, Another thing that helps too when it comes to breakaways or these rushes where we might end up with anything in tight on a pass or a rebound or anything like that, we want to make sure that our body stays square to the puck, that we're following the puck properly. And a little tip that kind of helps with that, especially for the breakaways, is following the puck with your stick blade, because that's going to kind of help shift your body back and forth too. If you're moving that blocker hand to follow the puck with your stick blade, that kind of naturally helps rotate your body a little bit, just like when we do it with our head and our eyes as well, which we should be doing that too. But not only does it help us kind of stay square and follow the puck, it also makes sure that we have something covering our 5-hole, because we've seen it time and time again. Players try and open up a goalie, slide at 5-hole. That's a pretty common move, and it's common because it works, right? It works pretty well. And a lot of goalies, they get stretched out, they start to panic, things get a little loose, stick comes off the ice, or they stretch their blocker out so the stick's no longer in between their legs or anything like that. And then all of a sudden that puck slid in and it's in the net. If we can follow with that stick blade, that helps cover that 5-hole, and it helps keep our body on that puck and square to it. So that's a little trick for that. The other thing too is just patience with all of these types of rushes. The more you can be patient, the longer you can hold your feet, the better that you'll be positioned to make that save. We want to make sure that, again, just touching on the fakes, we want to wait for the actual release of the puck before we do any movement as best as possible. I know things happen quick in a game. I've been guilty of falling for fakes and all that stuff. I'm sure everybody listening has too. But if we can try and make it a habit of being as patient as we can and waiting until the last possible moment to make our decision and go, that puts us in a much better spot. Because realistically, what a player is trying to do, um, at least in terms of a breakaway, is they're trying to outweight you. They're trying to get you to make the first move, and then they're trying to open you up to find a hole for that. But even on the odd man rushes, like, they're trying to make it so, you're a little bit late on a pass across by faking a shot, or maybe they're trying to get you frozen by faking a pass, taking the shot, anything like that. The more that we can just be on the puck, track the puck, and set and wait for the time that we actually have to move, that'll put us in a much better spot as well. So patience is key. Again, it's a lot easier said than done, but maintaining the eyes on the puck, tracking the puck properly will help a ton with that. And also just lots of practice too. If you guys do shootouts at the end of practice, which I know lots of teams do, just try and practice, being a little bit later on your reactions. See if you can push that a little further, push yourself to try and wait till that last possible moment to make that move that you need to do, and just work on that. Like that's something that is a good skill to have, because at any time that we make the first move, we tend to put ourselves at a disadvantage, and that goes for any situation in goaltending. We want to make sure that we're reacting to the play, that we're not, you know, doing something before the play happens, right? So that's something to think of too, and to work on. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers most of what we wanted to talk about today. Again, odd man rushes, breakaways, stuff like that tend to not really favor the defending team, obviously. But there are lots of things that we can do, and it's not as much of a disadvantage to us as it seems like on paper and on the surface. Like if you look at, overall what shootout records are in the NHL and stuff like that, if I recall correctly, I think there's still the majority of the pucks being stopped by goalies as opposed to goals going in. So even though it can be intimidating, and sometimes a little bit of panic might set in when there is a breakaway or when there is an odd man rush, just trust the process, trust that you know what to do. It's not really as bad as it seems. And hopefully a couple of these tips will help you, play these situations a little bit better. But in all honesty, like, it's not as complicated as it may seem. And just keep it simple, get set early, track the puck, maintain your position, gain a little bit of speed back, match the rush, match the breakaway, and everything else just kind of stays the same, right? Wait for whatever to happen, and then react accordingly. That's basically our job. And it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that, right? So hopefully that kind of helps you guys with some of these situations. Hopefully you guys enjoyed kind of, again, another little bit more of a technical episode. I know we usually get pretty good feedback on them, and they tend to be the ones that seem to be the most replayed as well. If you guys liked what you heard, please share the show, leave a like, a subscribe, a follow, depending on the platform you're listening to, whether it's the podcast or on the YouTube side of things. And the biggest thing you guys can do is just get the word out there. Tell other goalies about the show, get them to listen in. If you like this episode, share it with one of them. Say, hey, I got a lot out of this. Might help you out too. That kind of helps us out. Leaving a review as well, if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything like that, that helps give us some credibility to the show as well. If you guys want to check out any of our merch or drills or articles, or want to work with us in person or anything like that, you can head to truenorthgoaltending.com, and we have all of that ready to go there. You can follow us on our social media channels, so Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and yeah, I think that's it. Facebook, Instagram is YEG Goalie Coach. Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok is True North Goaltending. You can follow us on those. We are putting out more content on them, so that's been good too. And as I get more time, I'm gonna get some more, nitty gritty content like the episode today is. But other than that, guys, thanks for tuning in. It's been cool to see where we're getting all our listeners from across the world. So shout out to all of you guys in Europe, Australia, Russia, South America. That's pretty cool to see. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you have a good day. Make some saves, goalies.